Welcome into the Official Jets podcast.
I eat, breathe, and sleep the New York Jets, my team.
That is a tightrope walk across Niagara Falls. That's hard to do.
It's a game of inches, so finding that one little inch to be successful, it all matters.
The Official Jets podcast is presented by Kendra Scott, the jewelry company that's shining bright and doing good. Shop game day ready jewelry styles and so much more at kendrascott.com.
Welcome into a special installment of the Official Jets podcast. I'm Eric Allen. We recently made a trip down to South Florida for the 2025 NFL Annual League meeting. Hope you've had a chance to enjoy our conversations with both head coach Aaron Glenn and GM Darren Mougey. What we're going to do today is dive into their backgrounds a little bit with three head coaches: Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles, Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, and Bears head coach Ben Johnson. There are a lot of connections here. Bowles, a former Jets head coach himself, was a position coach of Glenn's with the Jets in 2000 and the Cowboys in 2005, 2006. O'Connell, a Jets quarterback in 2009, 2010, was part of a quarterback room at San Diego State that included Mougey and Engstrand. And Ben Johnson, the Lions' former offensive coordinator, was just in Detroit with not only Glenn, but Engstrand and new Jets O-line coach Steve Hyden. So we visited with each of them, and we figured we'd share those as part of a special podcast. TB, so great seeing you.
Good
How you
seeing
been?
you too, Eric. I've been great. I got no complaints.
What was your reaction when you had heard the Jets had hired Aaron Glenn?
I was so happy for him. I was so proud of him. He's done a great job the past couple of years coaching the Lions, and you could see it in their play, and I think he was a big part of the reason why they were successful.
All right, so let's go all the way back to 2000 because you've known AG for damn near 3 decades. When he's in your room with the New York Jets, and you're the secondary coach, what were those interactions like?
Very intelligent. It was my first NFL job, actually, when I came to the Jets in 2000. And it was him and Ray Mickens and Marcus Coleman and Victor Green and Chris Hayes and all those guys. So he was very professional. He's very smart. He understood that. But as a coach, I knew I just had to coach ball and I had to overlook all that. But he was such a smart player, an instinctive player, and he studied profusely. And I think that's the reason why he's a head coach today.
You're such an authentic guy. How intense was he? And also, can you talk about AG maybe as a player, even being a straight shooter in your communications with him?
As a player, he was so intense that if he gave up a 5-yard hitch in practice, he'd be pissed off. Everything he did was trying to stop the ball or pick the ball off or stop the play, from his footwork to his angles, to his tackling, to the way he dressed on the road. He was so professional. He was so intent on winning, and he was such a detailed guy, and I think that really carried over to everything he's doing today.
Did you see that in him that, hey, maybe down the line this guy's going to be a coach, or was it so early at that point? We're talking about 25 years ago.
I think it was early. I knew how smart he was. It was just a matter if he wanted to coach. You know, he was so good at so many things and so detailed at so many things. I think Aaron's one of those guys that'll be successful no matter what he did.
So second time around, you're in Dallas coaching
Yes.
the DBs. So he comes to the Cowboys in 2005. What was that transition like for you guys?
He was a little older then,
Yeah.
So he played nickel for me in Dallas. He was my nickel corner, which is just like a starter as well because he was so smart. We had Henry and Newman on the outside, and he went in on the inside. He did a hell of a job for us, and he was the same guy that he was back in 2000 when he was playing star corner for the Jets.
So he was a little bit towards the end of his career at that point.
Yeah.
Did you use him in terms of being like a mentor for your room as far as, you know, he could be a second teacher out here?
He was naturally a mentor. The way he prepared, everybody saw how he prepared. So Henry and Newman picked up a ton of tips from this guy because of what he did and how he watched film. Taught those guys a lot because they didn't know how to watch tape that well.
Okay. What was your reaction when you heard that he was getting into college scouting 2012, 2013 with the Jets?
We talked about it, and he wanted to try it out and scout, and then he wanted to get on the coaching side. So we had kept in touch over the years, very good friends, and he wanted to see what it was like, and he got a taste of it and everything else. Then he got into coaching.
How much do you think that background, the scouting, for a couple of years will help him as he embarks on this role with the Jets as being the head coach?
I think it'll help him a great deal. I started out as a scout as well, so it helped me a great deal because as a coach, when you're looking at players now, you really don't know how to look at offensive linemen or defensive linemen, especially coming in, being a DB coach. You can do that with the wideouts and the DBs till your eyes are closed, but it teaches you a different perspective of what to look for when you're looking for offensive linemen. So you have more input in the draft and when you're looking at players on the road and not just relying on the scouts because you were a scout yourself.
Can you speak to the influence that Bill Parcells had on Glenn, because he was one of your big-time teachers as well?
Bill has a huge impact on everybody. Bill he does such a great job of teaching. It may be hard teaching at the time, or what you think is hard teaching, but it's really life lessons, and they apply to coaching, and Bill makes sure he does a good job of that. And believe me, anytime we mess up or he thinks we need something, you're going to get a text. Till this day, you're going to get a text or a phone call from him, and he's going to just drop a hint of wisdom, and he's going to let you know, and you can carry on and move on from there. But I think Bill was a big influence on him.
As you saw Aaron rise throughout the coaching ranks, what were your communications like over the years?
We talked a lot more when he was with the Saints than we did the Lions. He knew where I was when he needed me, and he's a very smart guy. He doesn't need much talking to figure it out. That's what I told him. And make the decisions on his own, and he can figure all that stuff out because he's a very bright coach. If he needs to talk, he knows where to find me. But when we played against each other a lot in the Saints, we would talk defense a lot more.
Yeah, you've had a lot of success there with the Buccaneers. Can you talk about some of your battles with AG over the years?
Oh, they were tough. Now, when he had that secondary in New Orleans, they were tough to throw on. We had our battles, and they would stymie us quite a few times, and we would stymie them some of the times. But we always talked after the games, and it was always mutual respect from that standpoint, and that hasn't changed.
As a coach, he's stressing teaching and development. That from his staff, that's what you have to be. You got to be first a teacher, and then second, you got to be able to develop. Have you seen that from him throughout his career so far?
He's been great at it. He can teach in such a unique way because he's played it, so he understands it. He can teach, and then he knows how to develop. He treats everybody individually different, and that's what you need to move on as a coach.
How much do you think his experience in Detroit will help him with the Jets in terms of he got in a situation with Dan Campbell where they got it built, and now he's taking over in year one with the Jets?
I mean, it'll help him a great deal. They started from the ground up when he went there with Detroit, and he watched them go from a bad team to a great team, and he was a part of that development, so he saw how it worked throughout that structure. So I think that'll help him a great deal.
Does it resonate with you, your defensive background, when he's asked, hey, listen, what's it going to be like? You were a defensive coach, and he said, I just happen to coach on the defensive side of the ball. I am a coach. That's what I am.
That's what we all are, but, they give us labels in this league, so you stop trying to defend it and you go with it, but he's going to be a great football coach.
You going to be rooting for him
always,
from afar?
Always rooting for him.
Thanks, DB.
Yep.
All right, so that was Todd Bowles, who coached AG as a player at both the New York Jets and with the Dallas Cowboys. But now we're going to move on to Kevin O'Connell. O'Connell played quarterback at San Diego State. He, in fact, shared a quarterback room in 2004 with both Jets GM Darren Mougey and offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand. Let's get to KOC. Kevin, great seeing you here at the NFL League meetings. What are your memories with going back to your time with the Jets?
Yeah, it was it was such a unique time in my career because I had left New England, and the next team that you go to is the rival, the New York Jets, and so different, the way Rex ran things and from what I had been coming from in New England. But what it really was it allowed me to form some really unique relationships. Mark Sanchez, Nick Mangold, Jericho Cotchery, Dustin Keller. We had some Thomas Jones, LaDainian Tomlinson during my time there. I mean, I just look back on some of these names that I still keep in touch with in many ways to this very day, and guys that impacted my football journey in such a positive way that I owe those guys so much for allowing me to be comfortable sitting right where I sit now as a head coach in the National Football League, which I'm sure many of them are still scratching their heads about.
Hey, speaking of connections, let's go back to San Diego State 2004. That quarterback room included Kevin O'Connell,
Yeah.
Tanner Engstrand, and also Darren Mougey.
Yep. Unbelievable. And, Darren and I, legitimately have been, competing in many ways since, he came into San Diego State a year after me. Tanner was a junior college transfer, and I think it's kind of appropriate, right? The like how our coaching journeys and Darren in the front office world, kind of how our journeys have went, right? I would have loved to be recruited by Pac-12 schools and big schools, and I'm sure Darren would have as well. And Tanner was a guy that went to the junior college route and eventually walked on at San Diego State and earned everything he's ever gotten. So what does he do as a coach? What do I do as a coach? What does Darren do as a front office guy? We go in and we just go to work. Go to work, put our heads down, and learn and do things with integrity, do things treating people the right way. And what comes out of it is, like, I look at Darren Mougey and Tanner Engstrand as guys that are success stories, but nowhere near the finish line of where their success ultimately will become, because I think Darren's been ready to be a GM now for a while. I've been telling anybody that would listen about that. And Tanner, I mean, being around Ben Johnson and that great offensive staff, Dan Campbell as the head coach, Tanner's been primed, working in the same staff as AG for 3-4 years now. I think it's set up for Tanner to have success. I think it's set up for Darren to, really run that show with AG and shoot a lot of guys I have so much respect for. And being a former Jet, I and the fact that they're in the AFC, I can be rooting for those guys more oftentimes than not.
Could you ever dream back in that situation that when you guys are maybe going over some plays or watching some tape that you guys would go and have this future success?
No. I think we were all, that was a long time ago now. I mean, I'm not the oldest guy in the world, but, 2004, we're talking 21 years ago, and a lifetime ago it seems. But what I can tell you is I can remember vividly thinking that these guys are great people, great communicators, very smart. And both those guys were very talented as players, but what's transcended all that are those other traits that have allowed them to really thrive in this second career, if you want to call it that. And, in the most competitive landscape in the world, these guys are now one of 32 offensive coordinators and general managers, which is pretty spectacular considering that I also have become a head coach. So the impact
very successful
on
head coach. Now, so speaking of Mougey, you just said that you've been telling people that he's been ready to be a GM for a while.
Yeah.
Why'd you say that?
For one, I just we've had some great conversations in years past about, whether it's the draft process, more oftentimes than not, combine participants, hey, here's how I saw him on tape. And normally it's after the draft, where we're not sharing secrets before. But, hey, I really like this guy. I really like this guy. Well, why? Well, when I was watching his tape, I saw, him run this route, or he had this play in the red zone. And you start to realize this guy knows ball, and he knows how to see it. He knows how to scout it. He's got a great scouting background combined with working side by side with some great people, and John Elway and Matt Russell and George Payton and all these guys that really have primed him to now command and lead his own scouting department and his own personnel department. So I've been, if any coaches asked or any organizations asked over these last couple of years, any guys that I know out there that seem ready, Darren Mougey was always one of the first names that I would say.
You're an outstanding play caller. What's this going to be like for Tanner in year one of being a coordinator?
Yeah, he's got there's going to be some challenges, no question, going to a new place. And so much of their success in Detroit that he was heavily involved with were with a lot of the same players in the same system, kind of growing there with Ben over the course of some years. He's going to have to build a system. He's going to have to figure out what the New York Jets want to be as an offense, running the football, throwing the football situationally, and then build foundational coaching points that they can hold those players to build around year in and year out, because you want it to be something that sustains. And, that's the biggest thing about offensive football in the NFL is the challenges that come every single week. They can be different. They can morph and change throughout a season, and you've got to find ways of being able to adapt to that without changing who you are and not having an identity at all. And that's hard to do sometimes as an early in your coordinator journey, because you're trying to establish yourself. You're trying to make sure the stat sheet looks right. You're trying to make sure all that matters, and what he's got to remember is all that matters is winning, and the role that he'll play as the offensive coordinator in helping get that done.
Speaking of identity, let's get out of here with this one. Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about your battles with him.
Oh, man.
And what do you think he's going to be like here at his next step? Head coach of the New York Jets.
So much respect for him. Another guy, talk about being primed and ready. He's been a guy that could have been, a head coach years ago. What he did in Detroit, the way those guys played, their grit, their play style, their toughness, got guys that love football to all play together as one unit. AG's got every quality that Jets fans would want in a head coach, and he does it in a way that is so him. It's so authentic. It's so real. You can't help but gravitate towards that. I think the world of him. I've competed against him. I've coached with him on some staffs before. So happy for AG, and he's a great person. He's a great man. He's made of the right stuff to lead an organization, and I think Jets fans are going to love him.
KOC, thanks so much, buddy.
You got it, man. Thank you, guys. Great seeing you.
The Official Jets podcast is presented by Kendra Scott, the jewelry company that's shining bright and doing good. Shop game day ready jewelry styles and so much more at kendrascott.com.
Good stuff there from Kevin O'Connell. Let's stay in the division, though, and now we're going to talk to Ben Johnson. Johnson, formerly the Lions offensive coordinator. That's where Aaron Glenn is coming from, but not only just Aaron Glenn, but Tanner Engstrand served as the passing game coordinator for Ben Johnson in Detroit, and Steve Hyden was the tight ends coach for Ben Johnson. He's coming over with AG. He's going to be the offensive line coach for the Jets. We had a chance to talk to Ben about AG, Tanner, and Steve Hyden. What's this been like being here at your first league meetings, and not only yourself, but you see Dan Campbell there at the NFC Coaches Breakfast, Aaron Glenn as well?
It's been pretty cool. Both those guys I love. I absolutely love. I've had the last 4 years with both of them, and I respect the heck out of both of them as well. So those two guys are studs. They're both mentors to me. That's how I view it. They're brothers to me. And so it's been pretty cool over the last, call it 3 days here to see all of them.
And so what was that experience like for you in Detroit? Were you and Aaron competing against each other, but also obviously you're collaborating as well because you guys want the best for him?
Yeah. We always felt like his scheme evolved over the years, over the last 4 years. It started one way and then ended up going a different direction each and every year. And so we always felt like we were sharpening each other. He gave us all kinds of issues there in training camp that we had to be aware of, but we were trying to get our plays in, and yet we knew that they weren't necessarily ideal for AG and what he was doing. And so there was a lot of back and forth, and I knew early on last year that we had a different unit, and when they were healthy, they were one of the best in the NFL, and towards the end of the year there, you saw the attrition due to injuries kind of caught up with us a little bit, but I thought AG did a heck of a job all year long.
Why do you think he's ready for this opportunity right now?
He's so unique in terms of a communicator, all right? He's got such a wealth of experience because obviously high-level player when he played, has the coaching aspect down pat, but also the scouting aspect of it down as well, because it's very rare that you see the trifecta like that come together. He does all three at a high level. He communicates the standard. The players will love him, and yet they'll know that they're getting pushed and challenged every step of the way as well. And so it's been fun to see the staff that he put together. I think he's done a great job. I knew Steve Wilkes was going to be one of the guys there on defense that he trusted. And then obviously I know Tanner really well, and I think the world of Tanner.
Yeah, so Tanner, it poised to be an offensive coordinator for the first time in the National Football League. He was your passing game coordinator a Can you talk about the last few years with him and his development?
Man, he was an integral part of what we were doing there. I got to know him. It was before Dan even took the job there in Detroit. I think Tanner came on as a quality control there the last year of Patricia, and he had a similar trajectory as I did. We just kind of climbed the ladder the same way, starting low and then tight end position and a passing game coordinator role. And so he and I have a shared experience, a shared bond that way. I leaned heavily into him. The last 2 seasons, we had Johnny Morton, who's now in Detroit as a coordinator, the first year that I was calling it. And Tanner was the tight ends coach, and we ended up moving him to passing game coordinator, effectively taking over for Johnny Moe. And he is completely ready for this next challenge. He's called plays in his past, and so I think each and every game when I was calling it, he was doing the same thing in his own head.
Yeah,
so
what's that like, taking on those responsibilities for the first time, as far as like in a game that you're going to be the guy week in, week out?
Yeah, no, I think he's very similar to AG. He's an excellent communicator. He'll do a great job in front of the room with the players. I think where Tanner's really going to excel is he's been able to really thrive in these game management spots. So he understands the situation in the game. What do we need yardage-wise to get into field position, whether it's a field goal or an attempt to score a touchdown. And so he's very advanced in that area. And so quick thinker. And like I said, he was huge impact on our process over the last couple of years.
How about Steve Hyde as well? He was your tight ends coach, and now he's taking over the offensive line.
I'm so happy for him. I saw him at I think it was a Texas Pro Day just last week, and I know he's doing really well. He was excited about the opportunity. He coached those tight ends at a high level. Sam Laporta really took off under his tutelage, and I knew he always wanted to get back in the O-line room, and it worked out really well there in New York for you.
Yeah, evolution of the offense there in Detroit, how much can those guys take that with them as they embark on this journey with the Jets? Because one thing that Aaron continues to stress is that, hey, listen, we're going to have players, and then we're going to match our scheme to our personnel.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was always our philosophy there in Detroit. And so you probably don't know exactly what it's going to look like until you hit the grass here this springtime. And even then, whatever you see this springtime is going to morph and evolve in training camp and going into the season as well. So I think Tanner understands there's a progression in terms of how it needs to be installed. The foundation is going to be put in place here this spring and be able to go whatever direction is necessary, particularly with a different style of quarterback in New York now than what we had in Detroit. That's going to be fun for me to watch from afar, how he's able to tackle that, because that's a similar challenge to what I have in Chicago as well. It's a different style of quarterback. So a lot of different ways that offense that we had in Detroit can evolve.
Thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, appreciate it.